saying you to the audience, but in a really beautiful way. It's like, you, I love you. Now let me play you some beautiful music, you know? So there's this feeling like they're going to do whatever they want and assert their own will and not worry about how it's being understood or whatever. Yet the wonderful thing about that is that it speaks to people.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, then shall I start right now? Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hacktoberfest. As you all know, Hacktoberfest is an annual hackathon that takes place across the globe to celebrate open source software. The event is hosted by DigitalOcean in partnership with GitHub. And what does it mean to be a part of the community, and what do you gain out of it? Today, we're joined by a person who's very well qualified to speak about the open source community, a former engineering intern at Google. She's also taken part in Google's Summer of Code as a member of the year 2019. She was also a finalist for the Red Hat Women Open Source Award this year, Atibhi Agrawal. We are very glad to have you over here, and we would love to have you talk about how to get started with the open source community.
Okay, shall I start presenting?
Yes, you can.
Okay, sure. Um, can everyone see my screen? Okay, cool. So first of all, thank you to the open source community of VIT for calling me here to speak about my open source experiences. So today I'm going to speak about what is open source software, how you can get started contributing to open source software. And I don't want it to be like a monologue or me giving a lecture. Like, it is very casual, so you can ask questions anytime you want. Just raise your hand or type in the question in the chat. Feel free to interrupt me anytime. So let's get started with the session. So first of all, what do you think is open source software? Anyone? Okay. Open source software. Yes, that's a very good point. So that is one part of open source software. Another another very important part is open source software is a type of computer software in which the source code is released under a license, and in which the copyright holder grants users the rights to use, study, change, and distribute the software and code to anyone and for any purpose. That is the essence of open source. Like, you can take their source code, product, anything, and use it, modify it in any way. Apart, there is this huge table that I've put up, but don't be scared by it. I've just put it up to tell you that there are many types of licenses. Some licenses allow you to make your code open source, some do not allow commercial use. Some only allow commercial use, they do not allow it to be distributed openly. So these are what licenses are. And in open source, the license allows you to study, change, and distribute the software. So now let's talk about some open source communities that we use in our everyday life. I think the most famous is Linux. Everyone uses Ubuntu or Arch Linux or Linux Mint. So Linux is one open source organization, and as you can see, the amount of commits here and the amount of contributors, it is really huge. So this is a very good example of an open source organization. So like, I'd like to now get started with how you can contribute to open source and why you should contribute to open source. So generally, in first and second year, what are the prerequisites to contributing to open source? So I would like to ask you all, what do you think is the prerequisite to contribute to open source?
Knowing how to code and how it works in a community, like documentation.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so actually, you don't need any of that, to be honest. All you need is determination and motivation. All that can be learned. So, open source is the only software, is the only industry in which there is no barrier to entry. Anybody from any department can just hop in and start coding and contributing. So, first of all, everyone would like to know, how do you get involved with the open source community? How do you start contributing? So, basically, there are a few steps. Let me list them out in shortly, and later on, I will list them out in detail. The most important is learn version control. I'll explain about that later, because most companies use version control for their code base. The next is deciding which organization or open source company you want to contribute to. The third is joining the community. The fourth is looking at their code base and setting up your project. Most of them have information in the README or contributing. Then the next step is finding issues, easy issues, and starting your first pull request. And then finally asking the admin to review your pull request. So, first of all, let's talk about choosing an organization. From my personal experience, it is very intimidating for a newbie in open source to choose an organization that they want to contribute to. And like, when you go to the Google Summer of Code archives page or any open source programs archive page, there are so many organizations. How do you shortlist them? So, first of all, for shortlisting, I would suggest always go with your interest, not the coding language. Like if you are actually passionate about contributing to open source, definitely go with your interest, because what happens is, if you know C++ or C or Java or any one programming language properly, learning the other programming language is not really a big deal. Everything is almost the same, just the syntax changes, and there are a few features, plus or minus. So learning a language is not a big deal. It should be something you're passionate about. Like in this slide you can see there are organizations um, which literally have computational genomics, which make C++ libraries, which build operating systems, which like uh, like Elasticsearch, which helps in your DevOps pipeline. Dart is a programming language. So there are so many organizations. Just look at it, read up about it, look at the community, and try to choose a project that interests you and to which you can contribute long term. Apart from a project that interests you, you should also look at the community, because in open source, community is very important. If an organization has an active community where everyone is asking questions and helping each other, that is very important. So before you choose an open source organization to contribute, definitely take a look at its Slack channel or Gitter channel or Alias and see how active people are. Are they talking on a daily basis? Are they helping you out? Are they welcoming to newcomers? And last, see the programming language. I mean, that is the last thing you should see while choosing any organization, because I strongly believe that you can learn it. But I mean, it's always you will always have an edge if you choose an organization with the programming language you already know, but that should not be your priority. So these are a few things you should keep in mind when you choose an organization. So let me talk about version control. What exactly is version control? So, for example, you have a college project and you're doing it in a team with three other students. So sometimes you need to, make some changes, and they need to make some changes. So how do you guys do it? Like, I would just like to know. Hello, hello. Okay, because I can just see my screen, so it's a bit like I don't understand if anyone is hearing or not. Yeah, sure, cool. So, okay, let me tell you, what a lot of people do is they mail their code to their friends, or they give their code in a pen drive to their friends. So, this is not actually the correct way of building any software. The correct way is to use a version control system. It was made specifically for this purpose, which is collaboration. So, version control systems are a category of software tools that help a team manage the changes to the code over time. Like, the version control keeps track of every change that you've made to the code, and if a mistake is made, you can revert back to the mistake. You can compare your earlier versions of code, and there won't be any disruption to other team members while you're doing all that. So I won't go into the technicalities of version control, because you can find lots of good courses online. But one of the most popular version control systems is Git, which is used by GitHub. So you can actually put up your personal projects. I strongly suggest you put up your personal projects on GitHub, as well as when you have a team project, you use GitHub to collaborate. That way you will learn Git, and as well as not have any problems when you're trying to contribute to an open source organization. So the next is joining the community. So I mean, I feel it can be quite overwhelming when you join the Slack and you see so many people, and you might be hesitant to ask questions or introduce yourself. So I mean, of course, you should be very careful of the other person's time, and you should ask very pointed questions, and you should be very polite in these communities. So here are a few good examples of how you should talk. So here you can see someone says, "Hi everyone, I'm Ellen, a JS React front-end developer based in the UK. Really happy to be here. Thank you to Julia for the invite." So this is a very good and short way of introducing themselves. It's not too much, and it just tells them that they are interested in React, and they would be liking, if they're interested in React, it's a bit obvious that they would want to work on the front end. So for example, if you're a college student, you can say, "Hi everyone, I am Atibhi, I'm a college student, I'm interested in backend development, and I would love to contribute to this org. Thank you for having me." That's a simple introduction you can put up. Now, for example, you want to ask a doubt. So on the right side, you can see Carl Summers. This is a really good way to ask a doubt. He's not being very vague. He's posted links, and he's asking which part of the code. He's specifically asking for help in some part of the code. So this is a very good way to ask for help. And now suppose you want to make a feature request. So again, you can see someone has written, "What do you say about making a React component library?" So the maintainer replies, "Hi, perhaps you can raise this possibility and help them get started." So don't be afraid, ask questions, ask for help, introduce yourself. Just do it in a very polite way and be mindful of other people's time. After you join the community, you need to find issues. So how do you find issues? So actually there are many ways and many projects and many websites that help you get started with open source. Here are a few of them. These are not specific to organizations, but these are like a few websites. So what you can see is over here, the first link is Awesome for Beginners, Up for Grabs, and First Timers Only, and First Time Contribution. So these are specifically sites for first time contributors. You can go to these sites and look up at any issue, and those issues will be very simple, mostly a one line change or two line change, but they will help you get started with open source. So these are a few good places to make your first pull request. Another thing you should do is, when you go to any organization and you go to their issues section, here you can see labels in the first screenshot. And here you can see these colorful labels. There's something beginner friendly, accessibility. So you can actually sort your issues by labels and then decide which issue you want to solve. For example, if you're a beginner, you would definitely look for beginner friendly labels, and you could try to solve those. There are even first time contributors labels or a good first issue labels. So this is how you could find some issues and to solve.
Hey Atibhi, how would you propose that we get started with a community or join a community?
So I just here, right?
Hmm, yeah.
Like so I mean, for choosing an organization, like I said, start early. Choose an organization that interests you, not based on the programming language shouldn't be the first priority. Then after choosing the organization, join the community. You will find the link to their Slack or whatever IRC or mailing list in their GitHub repo readme. So that is how you join the community. Do you have like a more specific question?
Yes, I mean, like, how would you reach out to them? Like, be a part of the community. Do you raise requests? Sorry, I mean, do you point at issues and say that you would like to work on this, or how would you propose, like, get started?
Yeah, sure. So after you find an issue here, you should actually let me see. Okay, you should actually comment on the issue, and you should comment on the issue like, "I would like to work on this issue. Is this issue taken?" And they will themselves reply if this issue is free for you to work. Or another good way is you could just ask in their Slack community, "I am a newcomer and I'm interested in backend. Could you please suggest a good first issue for me?" So that is one way in which they can help you pick up issues as well. Does that answer your
Yes, yes,
question?
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so till finding projects and issues, now that you found a project, you found an issue, and you've joined the community, it's time to start coding. So you've picked up the issue and you've coded it. So now what do is you ask people to review your pull request. So you should not just put up a pull request with a very vague title and expect people to review it. Put up a detailed description relating it to the issue, and request people to review your pull request. And one more thing that I have seen is people do not wait for a long time before asking others to review. Within a span of 7-8 hours, they are like, please review my pull request. They ping again and again. So you need to understand that open source is very distributed. All the contributors are in different parts of the world. They have different time zones, so not everyone is available all the time. So definitely give them 24 to 48 hours to review your pull request. So now you've made your first contribution and you've raised your first pull request. Now you want to take part in some open source program. Here are a few open source programs, and there is a link here, opensourceinternships.herokuapp.com. This has a very exhaustive list of all open source programs. So this is how you can take part in open source programs. And let me tell you this, that taking part in any open source program is not very different. Almost all of these have the same requirements, and if you apply to one or the other, you should definitely get the hang of how to apply to the other ones. So now I'd like to speak a little bit about my journey with open source. But before that, does anyone have any questions? Okay, that's great. So let me tell you about my journey with open source. So I started in my second year and I contributed to Wikimedia Foundation. They were very small bug fixes and documentation fixes. And that time I did not really know a lot of coding, but making these small bug fixes and documentation updates to the README or finding spelling mistakes, even that gave me confidence that okay, my pull requests are getting merged. This is doable. I can do something. So don't be afraid to start small. Don't think that this is a very trivial issue. Any contributor can create it. So start small, but do start. So after I contributed to Wikimedia Foundation, I decided I wanted to try for an open source program. So I am not from a computer science background. My department is electronics and communication. So I decided to start trying for an open source program because I felt it would give me exposure to building real software while being in college, and nobody in open source community cares if you're from electronics or if you're from a history background or if you're from a computer science background. The barrier to entry is zero. Anyone can drop in and contribute. So that is one of the main reasons why open source attracted me. They did not care about my CGPA or my department. I could just go there and start coding and learn from this amazing community. So I decided to apply for RGSOC. I chose an organization, IFME. IFME is an organization for mental health experiences. It is a lovely organization and it helps people to share their mental health experiences with loved ones. I worked on this for 3 months during Rails Girl Summer of Code. I built a reporting and blocking feature for the users of this. So essentially, the reporting and blocking feature that you see on Facebook, something similar to that. So after after our GSOC ended, I really wanted to stay connected with the open source community. So I decided to contribute to public labs. So again, public labs, I decided to contribute because public labs is related to the environment, and it is something that I am very passionate about. So I started contributing to public labs. Um, then In public labs, after I started contributing, I realized that I do not have the bandwidth to do a internship as a Google Summer of Code mentor. I had some other plans, but I definitely wanted to stay in touch with the community. So they told me that if you want, you could actually, mentor other kids because you've contributed. So I was more than happy to mentor others, and I became a mentor for Google Coding and Google Summer of Code for public labs. So after Google Summer of Code for Public Labs was over, I got very busy with other things and I could not get back to the open source community for almost a year. Then this January, I decided to intern with Cloud Native Computing Foundation and FluentBit. So they have their own open source internship program. You will find the link in one of the previous slides. So this was a 3-month internship program again, and I contributed to FluentBit. FluentBit is a logging and logging pipeline which helps to which creates a pipeline for your logs basically. So I contributed to that, and currently I am working on an issue in the organization Prometheus, which is for monitoring and alerting. So currently that is the that is my whole open source journey.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hey,
Where?
yeah, hey,
Yeah.
Atibhi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I had a doubt. I wanted to ask whether college really matter if you're applying for GSOC, because I have heard a lot of, I have read some LinkedIn posts which says if you are from a normal college, they don't really see your work. They take IITNs and all those into consideration. So I just wanted to know whether it really matters, or your work speaks more than your college.
So actually, it does not matter at all. Like, I don't know why people have written that, but in my experience of 3 years in the open source community, I have never seen once when the college matters, because what essentially matters is how much code you are contributing, how involved you are with the community. That is the major thing that matters. So please do not get demotivated if you're from a non-CS background, or if you're not from a very good college. Don't get demotivated and just get started and contribute long term. Your work will more than speak for yourself.
All right, that answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
If you don't mind answering, could you tell us how you got started with open source? I mean, what motivated you into getting started?
So like I said, like I am not from a computer science branch. Actually, I am from electronics and communication, and I really wanted to shift to computer science. But what would happen is, these big companies, they would either want you, not every company, but a lot of companies would want you to be from a CS branch or have some substantial experience. So I actually started it to gain computer science experience because it has no barrier. Nobody ever asked me my department or my college in any open source community. So I wanted to start with open source so that I could actually build scalable products, or work on actual systems in college. Like, when you contribute to a big open source organization, the code that you're contributing or the feature that you're building, it will be used by millions of people versus a simple personal project that you're doing. You should definitely do personal projects, but this is just something I'm telling you, that your work will have a lot of impact if you contribute to an open source organization. So initially I started contributing to open source because of that reason, because it had no barrier to entry, and I thought it would really help me gain some computer science experience. But I stayed associated with it because I really liked the whole concept of it, and I really liked how you could meet so many people, contribute to so many things.
That's really nice. Thanks for contributing. I mean, thanks for sharing that.
Cool, thanks. So after this, let me talk about meetups and conferences. So a lot of people don't really know about this, but there are a lot of meetups and conferences that keep happening in open source. For example, this is like one virtual meetup that is happening today, thanks to the VIT open source community. So like this, there are a few websites where you can find meetups. One is meetup.com, one is diversity tickets, one is Linux Foundation events. So these are some places where you can find meetups and conferences, and even organizations, they hold their own meetups every week or every month, and it's a very good idea to attend these sort of meetups and conferences. You definitely learn from other people and you network, and it's a very good opportunity to grow and learn. So I highly encourage you to check out these websites and apps, and try attending meetups. And earlier what would happen is, these meetups would be physical, so it would not be possible. But one plus side of COVID is all these conferences and meetups are happening online, so anyone from anywhere can attend. So definitely, like, you should take advantage of this as well when you're contributing to open source, or when you want to get started with actually any technology. So, last but not the least, what are the benefits of contributing to open source? So, first and foremost, like I said, it's real life experience writing code. Your code will be used by millions of people. And the second is driven development and best practices. So, let me go into it in a bit detail. So what happens when you write a personal project or a college project is, you just want to make your code run. It should compile and it should give the correct output. That is what your main aim is. But in real life, sadly, that is not the only thing that they see, which is a good thing actually, because your code will not be read by only you. It will be read by thousands of other developers who are contributing. So it needs to follow certain guidelines. It needs to be of a certain level. So people will continuously review your code. People will continuously push you for improvement. They will tell you about the best practices that
Which
you
is a
should
good
use
thing
while
actually,
coding.
because your
So
code will
that
not
will
be read
help
by
you a
only you.
lot
It will
to
be
grow
read
as a
by
person, and
thousands
it
of
will
other
tell you
developers.
about so many things which you will generally not learn in college, or until you get a job and go into a company. So that is one more benefit, that you get to learn about the real world. The third is, you will definitely stand out from the crowd if you have open source experience on your resume. If you have open source experience on your resume, companies value this a lot, because they know that you've written production level code, and if you come to their company, you will already know a lot of things which a normal college student will not know. So these are some of the benefits of contributing to open source. And another benefit is that you will also make lots of new friends and mentors, and you can ask doubts to anyone, and find mentorship in the open source community. For example, I still talk to my mentor from Rails Girl Summer of Code and ask her for advice, not related to that organization but in general in technology. So you can find lifelong friends or mentors through open source. So these are a few benefits of contributing to open source. So this was all from my side. Now, like, if you guys have any questions, anything, just feel free to ask. Okay, sure. So actually, best thing I can't say, but one thing that has happened definitely for sure is, in any interview that I give, they definitely ask me about my open source experience. And when they hear that I have contributed to so many open source organizations, they are definitely impressed, and they definitely value it a lot. So I think, and it is a very good talking point in interviews when they ask, tell me about. As soon as I say I'm passionate about open source organizations, open source software, and I've contributed, that is a very good point, I feel, for interviews, for talking to people in conferences. So that is, I think, something that that is very good, that has happened to me because of open source. So actually, there are many companies who are totally open source. For example, Kubernetes, Prometheus, Cortex, Grafana. All these are companies that are completely open source. And grpc, these companies, these organizations, actually not really companies, these organizations earn money from donations. So what happens in an open source organization is, if you're doing something and someone wants to use what you built, they will take your code and they could use it, and they would have paid their own engineers to build upon it and contribute it and mold it according to their needs. So there are many grants, many companies that donate to these open source organizations to promote them, as well as so that they themselves can use this open source tool. And I think this is a good way to like monetize your open source project, whatever. I mean, actually it depends on the business model and what the organization wants and what their founder thinks. Like, say that every organization should be open source, but I mean, uh, yeah, company should make some parts of their code base open source, or some parts of their code base, extract them out and put them as open source so that other companies, other technology can use it. But if everyone started making everything open source, I don't know how to like affect the business and all. Like, I'm not familiar with the whole business side of things. Um, so the first thing is ask for help and Google a lot. Like, what you should do is, whenever you're faced with a difficulty or error, first of all, yes, put a lot of printf statements in your code, print everything and see what is happening in the code. The second is, whatever error you get, Google it, and try to go through the stack overflow links or the github issue links and try debugging it. And if you don't get it, ask for help in the Slack channel. People are more than happy to, and especially if you're a beginner, don't worry about anything. What are they going to think, or how are they going to judge me? Just ask for help.
So hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So everywhere, we find, some difficulties, right? Wherever we start working. So what were, your difficulties that you met when you started working in this?
um okay, so I think one difficulty that I faced was I was very intimidated by the code base. That there are so many lines of code. I can't even find the correct file where I need to make the change. That was very intimidating for me, and I was very scared to ask people for help. I was like, should I even ask them? Like, I don't know which file I have to make the change in. Like, that seemed like a very trivial thing to me. But later on I realized it's not actually a very trivial thing and I should ask them for help. So I directly asked them that which file should I make the change in, since I'm so new, I am not able to understand. And they really helped me. They really helped me, and once they pointed me in the right direction, I think I could go forward from that. So for me, I think the most challenging was getting intimidated by the code base and trying to ask people for help.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Hi,
No
Atibhi.
problem. Hi.
You told that you were mentoring students, right? You're continuing that still?
So I actually mentored students for Google Summer of Code and Google Coding, and I've also been a mentor for various programs by Women Who Code and Girl Script and all. So yeah, I am. I was mentoring, and I have a club in my college called the Lean Club, where I mentor girls to get started with technology. But as such, I am not like in any mentorship program right now. But always happy to help. Like, feel free to drop me an email or a LinkedIn message if you guys have any questions or any you need any help in open source.
Okay, thank you so
Uh,
much.
Considering that the open source actually does not have any monetary benefits, do you think it's possible for someone to contribute to open source on a full-time basis?
Um, yeah, definitely. Like right now, I am interning with a company where everyone, the full time people, they are working on open source full time. So definitely that is possible. Again, like I said, I am not very familiar with the business side of things, but as far as I know, that is possible because they, I think, they like they get paid to maintain the product from other companies, or they get funding. Like, I'm not very familiar with the business side of things, but that is definitely a career option. And there are many companies that have open source teams, like Spotify open source, Apple's open source, Twitter open source. These are like some companies which have a proper open source department, and where you can get paid to work on open source full time.
All right, thanks. If a product or a software or an application is open source, the source code is available for free, right? So that means it is more vulnerable than closed software for any of the attacks or cyber attacks, right? So how exactly do you deal with this?
So I have not worked in any organization or any product which has this security issue. And you host, like, the code is not vulnerable. The hosted server is vulnerable to attacks. So anyone who is hosting that open source, the responsibility falls on them to secure their server. And if you want to mess up the code, like I said, not everyone can commit. There are pull requests in place, there are people who review your code. So first of all, bad code will never get pushed. And secondly, these cyber attacks happen on servers that are hosted, it doesn't happen on the code. So it falls the person who is responsible for hosting that open source project, like how they handle the security vulnerabilities, and how they make their system safe.
All right, got it, thanks.
um yeah, I don't really that is a good point, but I don't know for sure like with statistics if that's true. But yeah, I think that makes sense. Again, it depends on the company. Like, I can't really like speak for any company. It depends on a lot of factors actually. Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share my experiences. Like, you are so professional, and I mean your emails and the way you conducted the whole event, it was so professional and so nice, and really well organized, like with the choice of the platform and everything. So thank you so much for having me and for taking this initiative of this event. And to the rest of the participants, like I have shared the slides with Akhil. I think he will be sending you guys the link. Um, yeah, sure. So yeah, so that's it, I guess. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Bye.
GitHub. Okay. Before we actually dive into all the different features and uses of Git and GitHub, let us first understand what GitHub or Git actually is. Okay. So what is GitHub? GitHub is actually nothing but a code hosting platform that helps you collaborate with your friends or literally anyone else from all around the world on any project. Okay. Since it helps you host code for free online, it's actually a key platform for open source developers. That is, you can find a large variety of different projects on various different languages hosted on the cloud for free. Okay, so basically, now that you know what GitHub actually is, let us understand what Git is. So GitHub actually uses Git. Okay, Git is actually the most popular open source version control software. So what is version control software? Okay, version control software is used to track every contribution and contributor to your project. So you know exactly where every line of code came from. That is, if you or your friend are collaborating on a project together and you both make different changes to the project, you would know exactly at what time and what different changes you or your friend made. That way, it creates a unified platform for both of you to work on a project without actually conflicting each other's work. Okay, so now that you know what Git and GitHub is, I think I'll explain about what we are going to be doing in this session. Okay, so in this session, we'll be learning to create a local Git repository and then committing changes to your local Git repository, also pushing these changes to your cloud base, that is to your GitHub repository, okay, on the cloud. Okay, and then we'll also be learning about branching, and then finally contributing to open source, that is creating your first pull request. Okay, so now that you know about what we're going to be doing in this session, I think it's time we start. Okay, so before we actually entirely dive into Git, the first you need to know a few basic CMD commands. Okay, I'm currently on Windows, so I'll be using CMD. Okay, so we'll be learning about CMD. Okay, like I said, so what you can see is I'm currently on my D drive, and in D drive I have a folder called OAC, and this is my current directory. So if I want to go to this directory, okay, now if some of you are wondering what directory is actually nothing but just a folder. That's basically what directory is. Okay, so now if you see, I'm currently in my C drive on my CMD. Now I want to redirect myself to this OSC folder. Okay, so how do I do that? So first thing you need to know is that I'm in a different drive entirely. I'm in C drive on my console, and I'm in D drive on this folder. So if I want to go to D drive, I just type D drive. So now this changes my drive to D. Okay, now if I type CD and then OSC, because that's the name of the folder, I'm currently inside my OSC folder. Okay, now if you can see, I have this folder called hello world. Okay, now to see what are all the different folders I have inside this directory, I just type dir, and you can see that I have this folder hello world. Okay, so basically if I want to go, so now I'll enter hello world. Okay, so right now I'm inside my hello world folder. Inside this folder, it's currently empty. Okay, now if I want to go back one folder, I type cd dot now I'm back one folder. Okay, so I'm currently right here. So if what if you want to create a new folder, you can type mkdir and then your folder name. So let's say the folder name will be OSCVIT-AP, and you can see that I have created a new folder called OSCVIT-AP. If you want to delete the folder, it's RMDIR and then the folder name, so OSCVIT-AP, and then you can see that the folder has been deleted. So if you want to create a new file, just type this echo and then use greater than symbol arrows, and then you just type the file name. So file name, let's say osc.txt. okay, you can see that there's a txt osc.txt file here, and that's how you create a file, create a folder, change a directory. These are some of the basic cmd commands. If you want to learn more, you can just google it up. Okay. Okay, I guess now it's time we get started with Git. Alright, next up we have Git. So we need to first install, that is download and install Git on your Windows computer. On Linux and Mac it comes pre-built. Okay, only on Windows you'll have to press this download button, and then latest version of Git will be downloaded. Just install Git. Okay, just keep pressing next. Installation is not that hard. Okay, once you have Git installed on your system, if you want to check if you have Git installed on your system, just open your console and type git version. Okay, if this shows up, that means you have Git installed on your local PC. That's it. Okay, so now that you have Git successfully installed on your computer, let us get started. Okay, so first thing you'll need to do is initialize a repository. So some of you might wonder what a repository is, right? So repository is actually nothing but a folder which Git monitors. What Git monitors basically means is that Git monitors every single change you make to the folder. Okay, so right now I'm in this folder called OSC. Right now what I want to do is it's actually a normal folder. It has nothing special. It's not a Git repository. Now if I want to change this OSC folder into my Git repository, what I do is I go to that directory. Okay, so right now it's in D drive and CD OSC. Right now I'm inside this folder. Now I want to convert this directory into a repository. So what I do is I use this command called git init. Now what this did is it initialized an empty Git repository. So right now this folder has become a repository. So some of you might wonder, well, nothing changed in this folder, it's still empty, right? Well, if you want to view the changes it made, click on view and then head over to click on view, find hidden items. Now you can see that there's a folder called .git. Inside this .git you'll find all the different changes, and everything you make will be saved inside this .git folder. That is, Git is currently monitoring all the changes you make to this folder. That's it. Alright, so now that we have a repository, let us first learn about committing changes. Okay, so let me open my console. Yeah, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create multiple files. Okay, so I'll call this as one.txt. it's 1.txt, so I'll name this as, I'll put hello world inside this. Okay, I'll create another file. I'll create another file called 2, and then I'll just add some random data into it. Okay, so right now I have two different files in this. Okay, now if I want to know the status of the repository, I just type git status, and you can see that two different files over here are being untracked. Okay, so what you need to know about commit is, okay, now imagine you are playing a game. Okay, now at some point of the game you want to save the game, right, to save all your progress so far. Now what you basically do is you save the changes. Now later on you think, okay, I want to actually play this game in a different way. So what you do is you load up back from the point where you saved the game, and then you continue playing it in a different way. That's exactly what git commit does. Git commit saves a version of all the files you have and then saves it. So anytime you want, you can go back to the previous version. So if you actually want a real-time example for this, imagine you're working on a project, say web development, okay, and say you built a website with your nav bar on the left side, okay, and then you save it and then show it to your client, and then your client is like, I actually don't want it on my left side, I actually want it on the right side. So you're like, all right, okay, fine. So what you do is you again work on it, and then this time you change all the settings to the right side. Okay, again you show it to the client, and the client is like, I like it on the right side, but I actually think I prefer it much more on the left side. If you do not have Git, you would once again have to rewrite all the code and again move the entire thing to the left side. But if you have Git, all you need to do is just revert back to the change when everything was towards the left side, and that's it. So basically what it does is it just creates a save point for all your work. That's exactly what you're going to do right now. So the thing is, before you commit a file, Okay, before you commit a file, that is before you add a file to your version control, you need to first track the file. Okay, to do that you do git add and the file name. File name will be 1.txt. So if I type git status right now, you can find that this file is currently ready to be committed and this is not ready to be committed. Okay, so what happens is if I commit my change right now, only this file will be tracked and this file won't be tracked. So any changes I make in this file will not be reflected on my future thing, on my future versions. Okay, so if you want to add all the files to your if you want to add all the files if you want to monitor all the files, just type git add dot, or you can type git add hyphen capital A. Now all the files are being monitored, so you can type git status and you can see this. Alright, now that both our files are ready to be committed, let us commit. Okay, so to commit, this is the command git commit hyphen m double quotations. Now inside the quotations, you are going to be typing the message for your commit. The message is basically the going to describe the changes you made for the commit. So what changes did I make? Okay, added two files, and that's it. You have committed. So if I type git status, you can see that I have committed all the files, and you can see that my working tree is currently clean. Okay, all right. Now suppose I make a change to one of these files. Okay, suppose I add these exclamation marks here, and I say, okay, now this is the change I'm making this file. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, now if I type git status here, you can see that one of my file is modified here. That is, I have made a change to this file. Okay, now I'll show you, now let me show you an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit my change. I'm going to first add this and I'm going to commit this change. Okay, okay, so I have committed my change. Now if I type git status, you can see that I have nothing to commit right now. Now what I have basically done is I've created a file, I've created a save point, and then again I made a change, and then I created a second commit. Okay, now alright, so right now I have two different save points, right? So if I open the files file and I can see this thing, now if I want to go back and check out what happened or what I did in my first commit, that is you know what I did in my first commit, right? That is without all this content. So if I want to go back there, I'm just going to type git log one line, and this is going to show the log, that is the history of all the commits I've made so far. And if I want to go back to this commit, I'm just going to copy this commit code and type git checkout and then paste this commit code, so 53A9DF, and you can see this file has been modified by another program. Do you want to reload it? If I press yes, you can see that I have made changes. That is, I am back to this version, and that is, if I type git status, you can see that I'm currently in this version of this file. Okay, now if I want to go back, I can just type git checkout master git status, and you can see that I'm back here. Alright, now that you know everything about Git, let us come to GitHub. Okay, now let us learn about hosting your project on the cloud. So first thing what you need to do is you need to first create your own GitHub account. So just head over to sign up and then just fill in all the details, and you can easily create your own GitHub account. Once you have created your GitHub account, go to your profile, click on repositories, and then click on new. Now you need to create a new repository. Let me just name this repository as stem. Just gonna name this stem. You can decide to keep it public or private. I'm just gonna keep this repository as private. It's best if you add a readme file. Okay, I'll tell you more about readme file later on. Okay, now you just click on create repository. Okay. So right now you have this repository on your cloud. Now if you want this repository down on your local system, what you're gonna do is you're gonna click on this and then copy this code. Copy this. Okay, you're just gonna copy this and then open whichever directory you want to paste it. CMD there, and I'm gonna type git clone. That's the command, git clone, and then you paste the code that you copied. That is, you paste this code. You paste this code. Just paste this code. Okay, now it's just cloning the repository. Okay, and it's done. You have the repository on your local system. The exact same things, readme.md, readme.md. Now suppose let me just create a text file here. Okay, so I have this text file right here in my repository, in my local repository. If I want the changes made in this local repository to be reflected on my cloud, on GitHub as well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first commit the change. Okay, so like I said, first commit the change, git commit. Okay, so you can see that I have nothing else to be committed right now. Now if I want to they itself told me here, if I want to push from my local commits onto the cloud, what I'm going to do is I'm going to type git push. Okay, the changes are being made. Now what happened is this file has been, the commit made in this local system has been pushed to the cloud, GitHub. Now if I refresh this page, you can see this, I have this file hello world.txt, and you can see that I have the changes made here, exact same changes. Okay, so that is about pushing your changes. Okay, now suppose if I make a change here, suppose say I edit this, then I say I commit a change directly on GitHub. Okay, so right now I have a change here, but this change is not here, is not that here, right? Like I have only temp here, this change is not shown here. So if I want the up change, that is if I want to get the changes made on the cloud down to my local system, I just type git pull, and you can see that the change is made. So what we learned right now was git push to change to push all the local changes onto your cloud, and git pull to get all the changes made on the cloud back to your local system. All right, let us learn about branching in Git right now. Okay, so what is branching? Okay, now suppose say you have you're working on a say you worked on a project and you completed the project. Okay, that is you completed a version of the project. Now what you want to do is you want to add a feature to the project, but what if the feature you're adding is going to modify the program in a way that might break the program? Okay, and then suddenly you're not able to do any of the changes. That is you again try reverting back to a previous stage, and it creates a lot of problems. Okay, that is why Git has this special feature called branching. So what this branching basically does is copies the entire source code and creates a separate copy, a safe copy for you to work on all the changes. And once you work on it and find a perfect feature, that is once you're completely done with your feature, then you can finally merge it back to the master branch. That is, suppose, just look at this. Okay, suppose this is the stage in which you are done with the project, and now you want to add a feature. So what you do is you branch it from here, and then you work on all the different commits. Okay, once you're done with the commit, what you do is you create a pull request. That is, in GitHub, what you do is you create a pull request. Once you do a pull request, all the other people who are working on the project are going to discuss with you. They're going to discuss the different changes. Like say, I like this change, but I hope like you can change this a little bit more here. And then once you listen to all the different inputs, you finally merge it back to the master. So now what happens is, from this stage to this stage, you have added a feature. That is exactly what is branching. Okay, now I'll show you how to branch in Git. So first thing what you're going to do is you're going to open your console. First thing you need to create a branch. Okay, so for that you do git branch, and then you type the name of the branch. So suppose I'm going to create a branch name temp. Okay, so right now I've created a branch name temp. If you want to see what are all the branches you have right now, you type git branch A. So these are all the branches they have, and the remotes are actually the branches present in the cloud. That is the branches here present within the cloud. Okay, now if I okay, so right now I'm in the master branch, right? Like the star that points is the master is the branch in which you are. Now if I want to go to the temp branch, I'm going to type git checkout temp. So right now I'm in the temp branch. Okay, now if I type this, exact same changes made in the master branch is here. Now if I type git checkout, now let me first make a change in this temp branch. Okay, so suppose I'm going to make a change here. Hello there. So this is the change I make. So if I type git status, you can see that I have modified this file. So let me add and commit this change. Okay, now if I type git status, you can see that there's nothing to commit and that the working tree is clean on branch temp. Now if I switch back to the master branch, git checkout master branch, you can see that on the master branch there's actually nothing but only hey there. Only hey there is there on the master branch. Now if I come back to the temp branch, you can see that this is actually there in the temp branch. So now you can see that there is actually a difference between the two different branches. That is, this is a feature I've added in the temp branch which is not there in the master branch. Now if I think I'm done with all the changes I've made in the temp branch and I actually want to merge these changes, all that I have to do is git merge. The first thing I need to do is I need to go back to the master branch. So git checkout master. Right now I'm in the master branch, you can see that here. See, I'm back in the master branch. Now if I type git merge and then the branch name, I have merged the branch. Now if you click here, I am currently in the master branch. Like, wait, let me show you. Git status, currently on branch master, and the changes in the temp has been saved onto your master branch. This is exactly what has happened. For a more clear view, let me show you. If I push these changes, okay, git push, if I push these changes to the cloud, to GitHub, so let me refresh the page. If we go to commits, you can see that I have these changes. This is the initial commit I made, and then this is the hello world. These are the changes I've made, right, to the master branch. Now the thing is, if I want to push a branch, so if you can see that there's only master branch on the cloud, right, like git branch A, you can see that the temp branch is only local, it's not present on the cloud. If I want to push this temp branch also to the cloud, what you need to do is I need to git push origin temp. Now you can see that there are two branches. There's actually a master branch and there's a temp branch. If I press temp branch, you can see all the different changes I've made here. So that is all about branching. You can so what we learned was, we learned to create a branch, we learned to create a branch, we learned to switch between branches, and we also learned how to merge branches. Okay, this is basically all about branching. All right then, so we are finally in the last stage of this entire session, and finally what we are going to do is contribute to open source. So what is open source? Open source is actually nothing but free and open software where you have access to the source code which you can view and modify for your own needs, right? So what I'm going to do is, so there's this repository, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own changes and submit a pull request for this repository. Okay, so to do this, what you need to first do is fork it. So I'm currently in this repository. You can see this fork option, you click on it and then you fork it. 1 second. Yeah. So right now the repository is being forked. Alright, so now the repository is forked.
You can only hear the audio. You're only able to hear the audio. The video isn't displayed.
And the temp, let me show you. If I push these changes, software where you have access.
Still loading.
Creating a copy of the source code for my own uses. That is, if I'm supposed to work on a change, or if I'm giving a suggestion or adding a feature to the already existing software, I am creating a copy of the source code, making all the changes I want, and then
Still
submitting a
not
pull
my
request. That is exactly what forking is. So that's
It's
exactly what I've
actually
done. Now, if you
clear
head
for
over to
me.
my profile,
Yeah, it's actually clear for me. I can see the video and the audio.
you can head over to my repository. You can see that I have a copy of that repository on my own profile. That is exactly what forking means. Now, if I want to submit my change, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clone this repository first. Okay, so git clone. Okay, so now I have cloned this repository. I have a version of this repository on my local system. Now let us read what we can do about what we have to do in this repository. Okay, so first they ask us to fork this repository, then clone the repository. Next we need they're asking us to create a new branch. Okay, so let us create a new branch. Git branch, and then the branch name. So I'm going to name this branch as temp. Now if you can see, git branch A, so I have a temp branch. Okay, now I'm going to check out that branch, git checkout temp. So right now I am in the temp branch. Okay, so they asked us to create a branch and check out to that branch. Now what they have asked us to do is contribute. So they want us to head over to contributors folder and create our own .json file. So let's do that. Alright, so let us create a .json file here. Okay, OSC VIT-AP.json, right, and done. Now what you're going to do here is let's just copy the template which they already have. Okay, now our GitHub username, so that would be OSC VIT-AP. Okay, that would be okay, I'm just gonna leave it at that. So what we have done is we have essential file here. That's what they have asked us to do, right, in contribute section. Now once we are done, they ask us to commit the change. So let's do that. Let us commit the changes. So git add git commit. Okay, add it myself status, and we have committed the change. Next they're asking us to update the local repository. So what updating the local repository, what they mean by this is that if many people work on a project at the same time and they send a pull request and it's merged to the master branch, it is essentially not the same as the master branch we currently have in our local repository. So this updating the local repository prevents merge conflicts. So that's exactly what we are going to do now. So I'm just going to copy that. So git remote. So what git remote add upstream basically does is it tells git that the branch, that the repository I have forked from is actually this repository, is actually the original repository I forked from this repository. Okay, now let us sync git fetch upstream, git checkout master, and now we are going to essentially merge if there is any change between the upstream and the local branch, and everything is up to date. Now that everything is up to date, it is time for us to push our changes. So let us push by git push, and then origin, and then the branch name, so temp. So our temporary branch is being pushed, and done. So if I refresh this page back, you can see that I have two branches, and if I switch to the temp branch, you can see that the changes I've made is added myself. Like here, you can see that I've added myself. So now what have they asked us to do? Once we have the branch on the cloud, and they are asking us to send them a pull request. So you can see that they're asked compare and pull request. So I just press that. I did myself. Okay, So now they're asking us to fill in this form. So let's fill this up. If you just add an X, it ticks the box. That's it. Okay. So once you have filled the form, you can click on preview to see how your responses look like. Once you're done, you can just click on create a pull request, and you're done. The changes you have made will be published on, and the maintainers of this repository can see and merge your pull request. So if they have completed, if they check and review your pull request, and if it matches that code of conduct and all the different rules that they set, they will merge your pull request. That's it. That is how you contribute to any repository online on GitHub. You fork the repository first, clone your version of the repository, and then you switch to a different branch, make all the changes you want, commit the changes, push the branch up to the cloud, and once you're done, you can just create your own pull request. And that's it. That is how you contribute to open source. That's it. We have reached the end of the session. Thanks for staying so long.
So guys, that's the end of the session. Thank you for joining us, both the Jitsi stream and the YouTube audience. Hope all the ones viewing the stream have received Google Forms link for the check-in. Make sure that that's filled so that you can receive your certification. Well, thank you for joining us today. Take care.
His music is saying you to the audience, but in a really beautiful way. It's like, you, I love you. Now let me play you some beautiful music, you know? So there's this feeling like they're gonna do whatever they want and assert their own will and not worry about how it's being understood or whatever. Yet the wonderful thing about that is that it speaks to people.
One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number since the number one. One is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Two can be as bad as one. It's the loneliest number since the number one. When I'm around you, I feel. And I'm feeling good. Feeling good.
I'll make a brand new start of it in old New York.
Start sweating.
I'm leaving today. New York.
A video camera converts the picture into a television signal.
that get off the boat. Keeping it soft like a man. Go to my link, coach in the sink. Chopping that work like karate. Serving a new Maserati. In a brand new Maserati. That's a whole lot of new money. Sashing that hot as a 12. Moving the squares and the bills. Serving the Royals a year. Beating that China like Kuta Kinte. Whipping it, fishing for a king. Drinking no syrup, I'm rolling up hate. Make myself a boss in the plug. Either way you put it, they gon' good. Triple salute, niggas straight out that hood. Making soda water splash from scale. Right at my pot in my lip. Feeling always went to the side. I whip me a 4-way to a 9. The dirty, the money is homicide. In my recipe, can you tell them how? Young nigga move that shit.